Africa Climate Week is underway and it hosts policymakers, practitioners, business and civil society organizations. It's running parallel with the Africa Climate Summit, which is now live in Kenya, Nairobi, bringing together more than a dozen African leaders as well as fierce climate change campaigners. This gathering aims to address the urgent challenges posed by climate change. Let's talk about it with Dr. Oldman Koboto of the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub. Good evening to you and welcome. So there's a great deal of expectation around, solutioning around the climate and making sure that we are investing in the right projects on the African accountability, but also on the African continent, but also to build accountability for environmental and other effects of climate change on the continent. And we all here in South Africa heard again recently at the BRICS Summit how Africa is the least responsible, but yet bears the disproportionate brunt of climate change. What can you share with us on this?
Well, thank you for having me. And obviously, like you have been saying, Africa is one of the most vulnerable countries in the planet. Yes, the least responsible. We have seen the recent climatic changes, climatic events that has posed a lot of threats to the livelihoods of the people on the ground. As you know, that Africa is home for about 32 million people who are in need of humanitarian assistance. And this is not made any better by the extreme weather events that we keep on experiencing. But also, if you look at the financial flows that are experienced, that are coming from the international climate finance mechanisms, they are very, very low and not necessarily corresponding to the needs of Africa. So this is a climate summit that actually, and the climate summit and the climate week that actually focused on trying to explore solutions by Africa for Africa, and actually making an offer to the entire world that Africa actually is the only hope to green the entire world, and all the stakeholders in the fight against climate change should now see to it that they invest in the solutions for resolving or for fighting climate change in Africa as the only hope for the entire world. You will realize that Africa is rich of natural resources, including renewable energy resources, abundant sunlight. We are very rich in hydros, geothermal, you name them. But all this has not been harnessed adequately in order to provide the much needed solution to the international community. So this summit and the Africa Climate Week has actually propelled all these opportunities before the international community to say the only hope for the world to save the planet is in Africa.
It's a substantial amount, the losses that the continent experiences, between $7 and $15 billion every single year. What can you share with us about where these losses are coming from, how they're being caused?
Well, you will note that these causes are coming from different streams, particularly resulting in initiatives that result in maladaptations. Some of the initiatives are as a result, some of the flows are as a result of trying to meet the national priorities of individual countries who are still battling to deal with bread and butter issues today, but on the other hand, being forced to adopt certain climatic measures, climate measures that are able to correspond to the needs of today's policies and international best practices with regard to trying to fight the impacts of climate change.
Dr. Koboto, I want to go straight as we conclude our interview to the solutions that you say must be made by Africans for Africans. So what areas of focus are priorities for your gathering?
This summit has a lot focused on transformative energy alternatives and ways in which we can structure the investments in such that they are not only focused on energy but providing two things: solution to the international community to find the impacts of climate change, but as well as helping Africa to meet the socio-economic development needs that are urgently required to address the bread and butter issues, ensuring that is compliant with the international direction. And it is pleasing to know that the Commonwealth Secretariat, through my institution, has always led the way in providing the solutions that are required, particularly in Africa. As you will note that since establishment in 2016, we have so far provided in the overall $310 million to the vulnerable states, with 216 million of that going directly to the African countries that needed it the most in order to adopt certain transformative approaches to address the impacts of climate change.